Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Marcellus in Froganachi. Now that we've learned all about graphing, comparing, and ordering integers and rational numbers, we're going to take a look at working with these numbers on the coordinate plane. Sound like fun, Froganachi? Today's learning objective. Students will find and identify a location on the coordinate plane by naming its quadrant and ordered pair. Today's vocabulary word is quadrant. A quadrant is one of the four sections of the coordinate plane. As you can see from the diagram below, the quadrants are labeled using Roman numerals, and they are labeled in a counterclockwise rotation. We start in quadrant 1, which contains all positive integers, then move to the left for quadrant 2, down for quadrant 3, and then over to the right for quadrant 4. Points that land exactly on the x-axis or the y-axis are not in a quadrant. When we're graphing on the coordinate plane, we have the x-axis, which runs left and right, and the y-axis, which runs up and down. Points on the coordinate plane are identified with an x followed by a y. We call this the coordinates or the ordered pair. Let's take a look at identifying some points on the coordinate plane. Let's identify the ordered pair and quadrant for point M. On most coordinate planes, the x-axes and y-axes are labeled with the positive and negative integers. However, we're going to use this coordinate plane that goes in increments of 1/2. That does not change how we identify and name an ordered pair. An ordered pair is always the x value, or x coordinate, followed by the y coordinate. To identify the ordered pair for point M, we first need to figure out how far it is over on the x-axis. We start at the origin 0, 0, where the x-axis and y-axis intersect, and we go to the right 2 units. The first coordinate is 2. Then we go up on the y-axis, and we go up to the value of 1. Therefore, the ordered pair for M is 2, 1. Next, we want to identify the quadrant for point M. Point M is in quadrant 1, so we would write the Roman numeral 1. Next, let's identify the ordered pair and quadrant for point T. I'll start at the origin 0, 0, and in this case I need to move left along the x-axis until I get to negative 1 1/2. That will be the x-coordinate for point T. Then I will move down until I arrive at T, that is at negative 2 on the y-axis. Moving to the right or up is positive, moving to the left or down is negative. The ordered pair for T is negative 1 1/2, negative 2, and we can see that T is in quadrant 3. Now let's find the point given its ordered pair. We have the point 1 1/2 followed by 1/2. We know that this is the x and the y value. We'll start at the origin or the center, and we'll move 1 1/2 units on the x-axis. Then we will move up 1/2 unit and we arrive at point H. The point is H, and H is in quadrant 1. Let's identify the point at negative 1 1/2, 0, and its quadrant. Since it's negative, we'll start at the origin and we'll move over to the left 1 1/2 units on the x-axis. 0 tells us that we move neither up nor down on the y-axis, so our point is actually on the x-axis, and that point is K. Whenever a point is actually on an axis, it does not lie in a quadrant. It's still important, though, to identify this. You don't want to just leave it blank when you're asked for the quadrant, because then that will leave a question as to whether or not you just simply forgot to answer the question, or if maybe you don't know what the answer is. Whenever we have a point on either the x or the y axis, we will note its quadrant as none. Next, let's take a look at some reflections on the coordinate plane. Name the ordered pair that is a reflection of -4, 2 across the x-axis. A reflection is the coordinate grid version of finding the opposite integer. First we plot the point, and then we find the point that is the same distance across one of the two axes. First, let's plot -4, 2. We start at the origin, and we go to the left to -4 on the x-axis, and then we will go up 2 on the y-axis, and we can plot our point. Next, we want to reflect that across the x-axis. That means we're going to jump over the x-axis and put it the same distance in the quadrant below. You can kind of think of taking a piece of paper that has wet ink on it and folding it in half along the x-axis. Where is that point going to land? At this point, we are 2 above it at -4, so the reflection is going to be 2 below. We can see that both of these dots are 2 units away from the x-axis, and they are both at -4. The ordered pair that is a reflection of -4, 2 across the x-axis is -4, -2. It is the y value that changes because we've moved down on the y-axis to get across the x-axis. When you cross over the y-axis, it is the x value that changes. Name the ordered pair that is a reflection of 6, 0 across the y-axis. First, we need to plot our point. We start at the origin and we go to the right 6 on the x-axis. Then we do not go up and down at all on the y-axis. Now we want to reflect that across the y-axis. This means we need to go in the opposite direction. We will go to -6, 0 and plot our point. We have crossed over that y-axis and we're equal distance from the y-axis but in opposite directions. The ordered pair that is a reflection of 6, 0 is -6, 0. Froganachi invited me to see his school. While we were there, we made a map of the school using the coordinate plane. Froganachi has some questions for you math students to answer. First of all, what is located closest to the origin? The origin is where the x and the y axes intersect. The location that is closest to our origin would be the office. Next, Froganachi says, we are currently in the art studio. What is located at its reflection across the x-axis? And what is its ordered pair? Well, let's go to the art studio, and we can see that the art studio is over 3 and up 2. If we want to reflect across the x-axis, we need to go down to quadrant 3. We are 2 units above the x-axis, so we will go 2 units below the x-axis, and we can see that that is the science labs. The science labs are located at -3, -2. Next, Froganachi asks, what is located at the reflection of -3, -4 across the y-axis, and what is its ordered pair? First, we need to go to -3, -4. We start at the origin and go 3 units left on the x-axis, and then we go down 4 on the y-axis. So we go past the science labs and down 2 more units. Then we need to reflect that point across the y-axis. Therefore, we need to be 3 units away from the y-axis, but in quadrant 4. We can see that we end up at the gym. Its ordered pair is +3, -4. Hey Froganachi, thank you so much for taking me on the tour of your school. That was pretty neat. What's that you said? Your favorite game to play in gym is Leapfrog. I couldn't have ever guessed that. Well, I think it's almost time for lunch. I sure hope the cafeteria here serves something besides insects. See you later, math students.